Asbestos law by state. Asbestos has been used in every state because of its useful properties of resisting heat, fire and electricity. But it also causes disease in many people exposed to it. Asbestos laws vary by state and can help you understand your right to safe workplace. They also guide your legal options if you have been exposed. Federal asbestos law and regulations. Since the 1970s, the government has passed laws regulating the use and abatement of asbestos. This law exists at the federal level through the Environmental Protection Agency (EPA), the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and other agencies. Although individual states can regulate use the asbestos of asbestos, several federal laws protect individuals from the harm caused by dangerous substances. The Asbestos Hazard Emergency Response Act of 1986 and the Asbestos School Hazard Abatement Reauthorization Act of 1990 regulate the use of asbestos in schools and other public buildings. The EPA receives funding and the power to accredit building inspectors and provides abatement through these laws. The EPA also regulates asbestos contamination of outdoor air through the Clean Air Act. The Safe Drinking Water Act manages water contamination. The EPA may also include asbestos as a pollutant when naming Superfund sites which are abandoned hazardous area. To protect those who work with or around asbestos, there are guidelines through the EPA and OSHA. This includes OSHA's General Industry Standards and Construction Standards and the EPA's Worker Protection Rules, as well as the previously mentioned law. The Mine Safety and Health Administration regulates workers in asbestos mines. The Consumer Product Safety Commission protects consumers from dangerous asbestos-containing products. Federal asbestos bans. Federal laws can be certain use of asbestos. States must follow these bans regardless of their own laws. When was asbestos banned? The asbestos regulation timeline began officially in the 1970s, but it was not until the 1980s that the EPA attempted to create a total ban. In 1989, the EPA banned all products containing asbestos and issued a asbestos regulation timeline began officially in the 1970s, but it was not until the 1980s that the EPA attempted to create a total ban. In 1989, the EPA banned all products containing asbestos and used a plan for phasing them out. However, in 1991, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals overturned the decision. The US is one of few developed countries that still allows asbestos in some materials. Currently, there are few products banned across the country, although many individual states have their own bans. Federal law prohibits asbestos in flooring felt, commercial paper, especially specialty paper, rollboard, corrugated paper, spray insulation, wall patching compounds, artificial fireplace embeds. When did asbestos stop being used? While there is currently no total asbestos ban in the US, most companies stopped using it by the 1970s or early 1980s at the latest. Today, asbestos materials may be imported in some materials and products, including aftermarket can brakes and clutches. It is also still used in chlor-alkali plants that manufacture chlorine. Examples of state asbestos law and regulations. State must follow the federal regulation regarding asbestos. However, federal laws are not truly restrictive. This has caused several states to develop their own laws regarding the use of asbestos with strict regulations. States are also responsible for implementing federal policies. For instance, states are responsible for enforcing SHARA and AHERA. Several states also choose to administer and enforce OSHA laws regarding worker safety. Others, however, leave this task to the federal government. Here are the few examples of how states have taken matters into their own hands legislating asbestos use. In 1987, Minnesota passed the Asbestos Abatement Act. It set regulations for asbestos abatement projects including licensing and certifications of workers, reporting requirements, and limits for airborne asbestos after abatement. Minnesota legislators have not yet banned all asbestos-containing products. However, many support that move. The state outlaws the use of asbestos insulation in all new construction. Because California has a long story of mining and shipping, the state has seen high rates of mesothelioma and other asbestos-related conditions. For this reason, the state instituted several asbestos regulations in addition to federal law. California's divisions of occupational safety and health regulates the certification of asbestos consultants and also regulates the training of workers who may be exposed to asbestos. Projects involving asbestos must be registered with division. Employers also have a responsibility to provide protective measures for workers. All workers involved in projects that contain more than 100 square feet of the surface area of asbestos materials must pass an asbestos certification exam. Like California, New York has a long story with asbestos due to industry. Several state agencies regulate asbestos uses and include requirements for licensing and certifying workers, keeping record and abating asbestos. The New York Department of Health regulates worker training, which includes an examination. The Solid Waste Management Facilities regulates the transport and disposal of asbestos-containing materials. In Texas, shipyard, chemical, and oil industry have led to numerous state-level regulations on asbestos use and training. The state has a story of exposure and resulting litigation, which have prompted from regulation than other states. The Texas Administrative Code includes regulations designed to reduce airborne asbestos as well as regulations for training, licensing, abatement, record-keeping, and penalties. In 1992, Texas passed the Asbestos Health Protection Rules of defined asbestos and asbestos-containing materials. These guidelines set reporting requirements for projects involving asbestos and made provisions for licensing. The Department of State Service is responsible for enforcing these rules. In 2010, Washington became the first state to ban asbestos in brake tires and shoes. Most automotive brakes contained asbestos in the past, but American manufacturers phased this out. Imported and aftermarket car parts will still contain asbestos and put workers and car enthusiasts at risk. Washington's Better Brakes rule totally outlawed asbestos in brakes as well as some other toxic substance. State law regulating asbestos legal actions. In addition to laws that regulate the use, testing, and removal of asbestos, in addition to laws that regulate the use, testing, and removal of asbestos, states legislate how victims of asbestos exposure can seek justice and remove damages. Some of these laws are general personal injury, while others are specific to asbestos exposure cases. State of limitation. Every state sets a time limit on filing an asbestos lawsuit. This is called the state of limitation. Time limit is usually 2 to 3 years from the time an individual received a diagnosis of an asbestos license. In the past, the clock began at the time of asbestos exposure. Landmark cases were responsible for changing this to the time the disease was discovered. This change was important because mesothelioma has latency most of decades. Most people do not receive a diagnosis for many years after their exposure. Contributory negligence. Most cases have some type of contributory negligence law for personal injury case. It means that if the plaintiff shares some of the responsibility for their injury, their ability to collect damages is limited. For most states, the law reduces a victim's compensation. In states with stricter law, an individual may not be able to collect any damage if they shared any part of the blame in their own injury. Caps on damages. Many states place limits on the amount of damages a plaintiff can recover in a personal injury lawsuit. Most caps are placed only on non-economic damages. This is the compensation a plaintiff may be awarded for intangible harm, like pain and suffering. Some states also can punitive damages. These are the damages awarded when a company is found to have engaged in particularly bad conduct. For instance, they might be awarded if company actively hid information about asbestos risks from employees. Take home duty. Some people develop mesothelioma after second-hand asbestos exposure, also known as stay-home exposure. This occurred when a member of the household worked with asbestos and brought the fibers home on their clothing or body. Some states allow second-hand exposure victims to hold companies liable for their resulting illness. Other states do not. In the states that allow it, the argument is that companies had a duty to warn workers and their family members of the risk of the asbestos exposure. Expedited cases. Because asbestos diseases are sharp and often cause a shortened life expectancy, some states offer an expedited process for lawsuits. Many plaintiffs die before their cases resolve, leaving family members to carry on with wrongful claims. Forum shopping. A lawyer might take its client's asbestos case to particular jurisdictions solely to attempt to get a larger reward. Some states or areas often result in higher rewards to asbestos plaintiffs. Choosing jurisdictions like this known as forum shopping. States something limit forum shopping to prevent out-of-state cases. They help keep lawsuits closer to the city or state where the victims encountered asbestos. Success or liability. A lot of companies took the asbestos liabilities after acquiring the companies. Successor companies often become responsible for the lawsuits against the original or predecessor company. Laws limit successor liability to a fair market value of the predecessor company before the acquisition. These laws protect companies, not asbestos victims. Asbestos trust fund claims closure. Victims of asbestos exposure are often eligible are often eligible to seek compensation through asbestos trusts. These are funds set by companies that filed for bankruptcy over asbestos allegations. The trust compensates victims with qualifying claims but do not prevent from also filing asbestos lawsuits against the company. Some states have begun passed laws that require plaintiffs to disclose claims they have made with trusts and any compensation received. This then reduces the amount of damages they can recover in a lawsuit. The future of asbestos law. The future of asbestos law. State law regarding the use of asbestos will continue to evolve. While federal rules may remain unchanged, some states can make changes to protect the public, especially workers most at risk of exposure. They can also make it more difficult for victims to collect damages. For instance, states are increasingly adding laws to increasing transparency involving trust fund claims. In terms of federal laws, the move to completely ban asbestos continues to progress. Most recently, legislators introduced a bill now called the Alan Reinstein Ban Asbestos Now Act of 2023. If passed, the law would create a total asbestos ban. States are also regulating asbestos allegations by putting caps on plaintiff settlements. This law will involve